Okay, today we're going to talk about word problems, how to decide if they're multiplication problems or division problems, how to set them up, and a little bit about how to solve using multiplication. All right, so here we go. Let's take a look at the problem. The first thing we want to do is understand it, so let's read it carefully. It says Simon buys 3 pounds of apples. Apples cost 50 cents per pound, so how much did he pay in total? The first thing I like to think about is, what am I supposed to do? What are they asking me to do in this problem? And so I look for the question word, right? I see a question word right there, how. That means this sentence should be a question, even though there's no question mark at the end. We know that they want us to figure out how much did he pay in total. Okay, now I'm going to start looking for some numbers. I see that there's 3 pounds of apples. I see that they're 50 cents. That looks like 2 numbers. But I also recognize that where it says per pound, that means for 1 pound, right? For 1 pound. If you see the sign in a supermarket, 50 cents per pound, you know that you have to pay 50 cents to get 1 pound of apples. So we should recognize that as another number. 3 numbers means I have enough to set up a proportion, and that will help me figure out how to solve this problem. So let's do it. A proportion starts out with an I know ratio, a ratio of 2 numbers that I know. And I think the ones that I know for sure are the 50 cents for 1 pound, right? That's given to us in the question. Those numbers are related. That's a sign you might see in a store. The I wonder part is, well, that's our question. I want to know how much he's going to pay. So I see in my ratio I have money on the top. So in my I wonder ratio, I'm also going to put the money in the top, even though I don't know how much it is. So if money is on the top, that means that pounds must go on the bottom. And I see, how many pounds did he buy? That's our third number, 3 pounds. So there, I have a proportion set up. Now I just have to figure out, I need a plan. I need to figure out my plan for turning the 1 pound into 3 pounds and finding out how much money that will be. So we're going to start thinking about, how do I change 1 pound into 3 pounds? Well, I could just add them all up. 1 pound and 1 pound and 1 pound. You know, imagine him going to the store and buying 1 pound of apples. That would cost 50 cents. And then he buys another pound of apples. That would cost another 50 cents. And then he buys another pound of apples. That would cost another 50 cents. We could solve the problem that way, right? Okay, let's try it. Let's add them all up. Now, I want to recognize that that's the same as multiplying, right? And that's how we should be solving these problems, using multiplication. Because if you have to add something over and over and over again, it can get very difficult. Imagine if he bought 79 pounds of apples. Could you write 50 cents 79 times? Imagine if he bought 4/10 a pound of apples. How would you write 50 cents or 4/10 of a time, right? That's confusing. So let's try and focus on using multiplication, right? So we're going to go ahead and solve this using addition, and then we'll check it with multiplication to see how to do that, right? So we're going to solve it. The hundredths place is 0. I'm going to add up the tenths place, so that's 15. I'm going to carry the 1, and I'm going to add up the ones place, and I end up with $1.50. Okay? So we've solved it, but like I said, let's check it with multiplication. Checking. Here we go. Now that's our addition problem. We can set this up as 3 groups of 50 cents, and it would look like this. Okay? Now, when we add, the first thing we did was add the hundredths place, right? And when we multiply, the first thing we're going to do is multiply the hundredths place. Now, 3 times 0 is 0, and 0 plus 0 is 0. When we add them, we still get 0, so same answer. Now, the next thing we're going to do is add the tenths place, right? We did 5 plus 5 plus 5, and we got 15, and we carried the 1. And now when we multiply, let me back that up there. When we multiply 3 times 5, we're going to get 15, and we're going to carry the 1. Same thing. The next step in adding is we added the ones place. We had 0 plus 0 plus 0 plus the 1 on top, gave us 1. When we're multiplying, we're going to multiply 3 times the hundreds place, and we're going to get 3 times 0 is 0 plus the 1 on top gives me $1.50. All right. Now with multiplication, you have this problem of the decimal. Where does the decimal go? When you're adding, we just drop it straight down. But when you're multiplying, you have to be careful. It doesn't quite work like that. First, we count how many decimal places are in the top factor, right? We see 2 numbers behind the decimal. That means 2 decimal places. So I'm going to write 2 decimal places. In the number 3, that's our second factor, I have 0 decimal places. The 3 is in front of the decimal. It's in the ones place. So there are no numbers or digits behind the decimal. So that gives us a total of 2 decimal places. I actually add those together. And so in my answer, I want to have 2 decimal places. So I'm going to count 2 numbers behind the decimal. And there it goes. And it matches. We have $1.50 for each problem. So we've checked it using a different strategy. We have the same answer. And hopefully we've learned something about multiplication also. All right, that's great.